you go along, louder, louder. Sing like you like to sing. God loves all simple things. For God is the simplest of all. For God is the simplest of all. I will sing the Lord a new song, to praise Him, to bless the Lord. I will sing His praises while I live all of my days. Blessed is the one who loves the Lord. Blessed is the one who praises Him. Louder, louder, louder. All men blessed walks in His ways. I will lift up my eyes to the hills from whence comes my help. I will lift up my voice to the Lord, singing louder, louder. For the Lord is my shade, is the shade upon my right hand, and the sun shall not smite me by day, nor the moon by night. Blessed is the one who loves the Lord. Louder, 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 and walks in His ways. Louder, louder, da day. Louder, louder, dee da dee day. All of my day.
השיר שהלווים היו אומרים בבית המקדש, היו אומרים בבית המקדש. ביום הראשון היו אומרים לאדוני ארץ מלאה תבל ויושם בידה. השלישי היו אומרים אלוהים ניצב בקרב אלוהים ישפוט.
ברביעי היו אומרים אל נקומות אדוני, אל נקומות הופיע.
בחמישי היו אומרים הרנינו לאלוהים עוזנו הריעו לאלוהי יעקב.
בשישי היו אומרים אדוני מלך את לבש, לבש אדוני עוז התעזר.
בשבת היו אומרים בשבת היו אומרים היו מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת.
מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת.
מזמור השיר ליום השבת. מזמור השיר לעתיד לבוא.
שכולו שבת שבת. מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר, ליום השבת.
Very nice. Joyce, you've trained them. Oh, and when you need to take a breath. Hallelu el becocho, hallelu bequilla,
Lots of people up in the balcony. How nice. We're starting on page 194.
ושמחת בחגך והיית אך שמח ושמחת בחגך והיית אך שמח
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
So V'samachta v'chagecha v'hayita ach sameach, the pasuk about Sukkot itself, rejoice in your festivals and be utterly joyous. Sukkot is Zman Simchatenu, the time of our greatest joy. And I'll start with a piece of joyous good news, which is that Rabbi Kleinbaum and Randy have safely landed in the country. They're back home. We're so thrilled. We're sending them prayers for safety the entire time. They're safe. They're now back. Rabbi Kleinbaum will be here next Friday, and she will speak about her extremely powerful and moving trip to Ukraine during that time. And we're sending them all of our love from 30th Street now. So it's Shabbat Chol HaMoed Sukkot, Shabbat of Sukkot. It's a little bit special. It's Sukkot is one of my favorite holidays for a very personal reason, which is that I was born on Erev Sukkot. So yes, I know. So it feels like it's my holiday. And I feel like Zman Simchatenu, a time of joy, feels very of the way that I like to be in the world, bringing in joy. And does anybody do joy better than CBST? I mean, look at this incredibly beautiful space. I don't know that I've ever been in an indoor sukkah before. This is sort of a indoor sukkah, and it's really, it's truly amazing. And CBST knows we know how to do hard times and we know how to do joyous times. So happy to be here in a joyous time with all of you. As we go through the service, you'll notice that there's some changes, some insertions, some things we take away. I'll make sure that everybody is aware of everything as we go through. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear if there's anybody new or anybody who hasn't been to a service in quite some time. I'd love to say hello. So, yes, please. Wow. Wow, Gabrielle, so wonderful to have you. And where are you joining us from? The Upper East Side. Wonderful. Well, welcome. And happy holiday as well. Chag Sameach. Yes.
Hello, that's my first time here. My name is Reinhard. I come from Venezuela.
From Venezuela. And say your name one more time.
Reinhard.
Reinhard? So lovely to have you. And I saw that you were modeling so in such a lovely way, the way that our Siddur and our program really have so much information. So please, definitely look through, see all of the things that we have to offer. And we're so happy to have you here. And is this also new?
Yes.
Welcome.
From Venezuela too. We joined the CBST 2 years ago.
Wow.
So
amazing.
That's a lot of help, a lot.
Wow. We are so happy you're here. So happy you're here. Yes, absolutely. Welcome. Anyone new in this section, or is this, yes, great. Oh, so say your name one more time. Say your name one more time. Susan, and you've been in Javits and you've been helping with our clinic? So wonderful to have you, Susan. So glad you're here tonight. Yes?
I'm Leah. I'm Arlington, Texas, and I've been watching online for a while and have a chance to come see.
Wow, Leah from Arlington, Texas. Did you know that we have an almost all Texan clergy panel? Not me, but yeah.
Part of my rationale.
Okay, well, so happy you're here, Leah. Thank you. Anyone in the balcony? Some new faces up there? Anybody up there first time? Yeah.
Hi, I don't really know what to say.
What's your name? How about that?
I'm Teddy.
Teddy. It's so lovely that you're here, Teddy. Welcome. Did you email me earlier this week, Teddy?
Yes.
So I'm so happy you're here. Anyone else new up there? Yeah.
I'm
Meg, are you here with Teddy? Oh, wow, you just happened to sit next to each other. Welcome. I'm so happy you're both here. Welcome. Anyone else? Those are some old timers up there, right? Okay, great. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kenny Agosto. Not my first time.
Okay.
But Sebastian McGuire is my boyfriend. He does the clinic.
Oh, wow. Oh, great.
So we support what you're doing. We love Rabbi James, Rabbi Kleinberg, and we love you all.
Well, we love you too. We're so happy you're here. Just remind me your name one more time.
Kenny Agosto.
Kenny, so glad you're here. And Rabbi James and others were hosting an oneg before a pre-Shabbos oneg to honor all of the volunteers who have been helping out with the clinic over the course of the past year. And I would love to invite anyone who has been helping with the clinic over the past year to come up and light candles with us as well. Page 38 for candle lighting.
Baruch atah
Thank you all so much. We're so grateful for all the work that you do in the clinic, and so grateful you're here tonight. Thank you. And I just want to say that I've been saying Chag Sameach because I feel so joyful about being on Sukkot, but it's not actually Chag. And so the correct greeting is Moadim L'Simcha. We're happy this in-between time brings us joy on Sukkot as well. So Moadim L'Simcha to everybody. And we also welcome in the angels around us for Shabbat on page 40 with Shalom Aleichem. Everyone's welcome to stand as you're able.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elom, Mi-melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi-melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi-melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi-melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shabbat Shalom. Say Shabbat Shalom to your neighbor. So one of the unique things about Shabbat Chol HaMoed Sukkot, Shabbat of Sukkot when it's not a Chag, is that we don't do Kabbalat Shabbat. I know, right? It always feels a bit weird, I have to say. It always feels like, wait a minute, we love Shabbat so much. Of course we want to bring in Shabbat with so much joy and excitement. And the reason is that Sukkot, as I said at the beginning, is Zman Simchatenu, the time of our joy, the time where we're supposed to rejoice the entire 7 days long of the festival. And so the rabbis thought, we don't need Kabbalat Shabbat in the same way because we're already at this extremely high place. And so we're already so happy and excited that we welcome in Shabbat a little bit differently. We don't need the same preparation of getting excited that Kabbalat Shabbat usually brings us. Of course, it is a little bit sad also because we love Kabbalat Shabbat so much. And so instead we are welcoming in Chol HaMoed with the beautiful words in the program on page 4 from the Yiddish poet Avram Raisin. He is a beautiful Yiddish poet, and the words themselves are a folk song. Is that right? Does that sound right, Joyce? Folk song set to music, and we welcome you to follow along and to be thinking of the themes of Sukkot that encompass both joy and also this sense of temporariness, the feeling that we're in this temporary structure, we're in these 7 days but we're right after Yom Kippur and we're about to end the holiday season, and so we're in this space carrying us through the holiday season with both a lot of joy and that feeling of okay, but it's gonna go away soon. We're feeling that temporary quality as well. So page 4 in the program.
A suche a kleine von Brettlach gemeine hab ich kaum mit Zures gemacht, gedeckt dem Dach mit a bissel Schach und ich sitz da Suches bei Nacht und ich sitz da Suches bei Nacht. Vom Wind, dem Kalten, was bloß durch dich Spaten, mein Lichterlicht löschen sich will. Da mach ich mir Kiddisch und set nur a Chiddisch, mein Lichtel brennt ruhig und still. Mein Lichtel brennt ruhig und still.
So beautiful. Wow. Thank you. So even though we don't have Kabbalat Shabbat, we do still say the Psalm for Shabbat, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, which can be found on page 72. And I have sort of been harping on a little bit of this teaching that I recently learned. And so I did write about it in an e-news that went out, but I want to just say a little bit more about it, which is that we know that, or there is a rabbinic tradition, I should say, that the Jews, Moshe came down from Mount Sinai with the second set of tablets on Yom Kippur. The first set of tablets Moshe broke when he saw how incredibly brazen the Israelites were being by worshiping the golden calf. He was so upset and so angry that he broke the tablets and had to go back up the mountain and ask God for forgiveness on behalf of the Israelite people. He was up on the mountain for 40 days writing the new set of tablets by hand, and on Yom Kippur is the day that he came down. So Yom Kippur is historically our day of second chances. However, while the Israelites were wandering in the desert, the way that they knew that God's presence was with them was through the clouds, the Ananei HaKavod, the clouds that followed them on their journey. And when they worshipped the golden calf, the clouds disappeared. The entire time Moses was up on Har Sinai asking for forgiveness for them, the clouds were gone. They had no sense of God's presence with them. They felt completely alone. So when Moshe came back down with the second set of tablets, their second chance was renewed, but they still did not have the cloud. The cloud was still gone. So I just want us to feel into that emotion just a little bit, that feeling of, okay, we're here, we're ready, but we still don't have the physical sign that God is with us. And the rabbinic tradition says that it's on Sukkot. Sukkot is when the cloud came back. And that is part of what we're feeling with our great joy. That feeling of, yes, not only do we have a second chance, we have the presence of God with us as well. So I'm inviting you with the Psalm for Shabbat, the time to think about gratitude, to feel into, as much as you can, that sense of, wow, God is with us. The Ananei HaKavod have returned, the clouds have returned. We are with the presence of God. Page 72.
Mizmor Shir L'Yom
And before we welcome in the evening service, I'd like to welcome in the mourners who are among us. CBS team member Shep lost his mother very recently. Just want to make sure that he's coming into the room. Thank you, CBST Vice President Harold Levine. And it's traditional that that those who are in mourning they're not in the room for Kabbalat Shabbat because of the joyous nature of Kabbalat Shabbat. So we welcome in Shep as we enter into the Mariv service. Hamakom yenachem etchem betoch sha'ar evalim vayavi lechem shalom. May God comfort you, Shep, among all who mourn and bring you peace. We're so happy you're with us and in community. We welcome in the evening service with Baruch Hu on page 78. Please rise in body or spirit.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
You may be seated. And please join me on page 84 with Let Evening Come. Let evening come. Let the light of late afternoon shine through chinks in the barn, moving up the bales as the sun moves down. Let the cricket take up chafing as a woman takes up her needles and her yarn. Let evening come. Let dew collect on the hoe abandoned in long grass. Let the stars appear and the moon disclose her silver horn. Let the fox go back to its sandy den. Let the wind die down. Let the shed go black inside. Let evening come. To a bottle in the ditch, to the scoop in the oats, to air in the lung, let evening come. Let it come as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless, so let evening come.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב ערבים
Page 86.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל אמן ועוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
We read the next two paragraphs of the Shema individually.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
Page 94 for Micha Mocha, where we will hear a special Sukkot melody as well.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה לי ענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. אמן.
We've reached the point in our service for our protection prayer, for our Hashkivenu prayer. It's a time to really think about who we're calling in, who we would like to ask for protection for this evening. The very last words of the prayer are Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, spread over us a sukkah of your peace. We ask God to shelter us like God sheltered the Israelites in the desert with the cloud, with a presence of peace. There's so many places that need peace right now. Certainly, we're thinking of those in the Ukraine, especially on the heels of Rabbi Kleinbaum and Randy's trip there. We are asking for peace for all those who seek peace. We ask that God join them and bring peace to them. Recently, Supreme Court came back into session, and we're asking for peace and protection and guidance for all the laws and the decisions that will be carried out going forward. We need protection and we need peace. And anything else that we need peace for this evening, I invite you to take a moment right now and ask for it. Ask for the protection that you need, that those we love need, that all those around us need, that all those in the world need. For Hashkivenu this evening will be in the program on page 4, so that we can really focus on the word sukkah, on the shelter of peace that we are seeking. Page 4 in the program.
Close your eyes and go to sleep. There's nothing you must fear, my precious one. You will be so safe and so protected in the shelter of my love. And when you meet the light of day, you'll never have to fear what you will see. You are the hope of all that can be. Feel the peace around you. When you awaken, you will come to know that innocence and wonder are veiled by the guns and bombs and wars. But you must never run away. The changes that will come will only be the fruit of your hands, the breath of your being. A shelter of courage, a shelter of light and dreams, a shelter of love, a shelter of ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל כל העמים ועל ירושלים.
Didn't that feel like being wrapped in a cozy blanket or a shelter of peace, perhaps? So we join together on page 102 for Vishamru as we begin to take the first steps into the Shabbat Mariv Amidah, and we will rise in body and spirit and sing together, page 102.
לדורותם ברידו
Chatzi Kaddish is on page 104, followed immediately by the Amidah, page 106. Please note that there is a special insertion for Chol HaMoed Sukkot, Ya'aleh v'Yavo, which can be found on page 110. So if you are saying the words through in Hebrew, you can make sure to add that on page 110. You can also feel free to say the words in the English or say whatever in your heart that you feel the need to pray this evening. Chatzi Kaddish, page 104.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ועלמא דברה קילותי והמליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה קריב וימרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה טוב שפחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה וימרו
If you're still praying, please continue at your own pace. We will continue on page 5 in the program, and feel free to follow along, sing along, or just listen to the beautiful words of Naomi Shemer for her song for Sukkot.
סוכה מוארת וירוקה, שלומית בונה סוכת שלום. ואין זו סתם סוכה מוארת וירוקה, שלומית בונה סוכת שלום. היא לא תשכח לשים לולב והדסים, ענף של ערבה ירוק, רימון בתוך הסחב וכל פירות הסתיו, עם ריח בוסתנים רחוק. רימון בתוך עליו וכל פירות הסתיו, עם ריח בוסתנים רחוק. וכששלומית תאמר הביטו זה נגמר, יקרה דבר נפלא פתאום. יבואו השכנים כולם בהמונים, ולכולם יהיה מקום. יבואו השכנים כולם בהמונים, ולכולם יהיה מקום. ואז מתוך הסכך יציץ לו ויזרח כוכב בהיר כיהלום. שלום סוכה פלנים, מה טוב ומה נעים, שלומית בונה סוכת שלום. שלום סוכת שלום, מה טוב ומה נעים, שלומית בונה סוכת עושה שלום ממרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל. ואמרו
brings me so much joy to see our sanctuary, every single section of our sanctuary filled with people. I mean, really, my heart is feeling completely full. So happy, so happy. Page 130. Mishaberach imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah Rachel Bilha v'Zilpa ve'avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel, Bilha, and Zilpa, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, bless us too. Bless and heal all those who are ill. CBST holds in our healing prayers this evening Shana Call, Alan Messer, Ron Cohen, Linda Solomon, Deborah Dolgen-Wolf, Marty Siegel, Mickey Dickinson, Michal Chaya Bat Aviva, Ira Friedman, Mordechai Ben Nachman Vebela Rivka, Erica Foreman, Charles Jefferson, and Joe Hull. And I invite you to include any names right now, either in the chat, online, or in the room here of those you're praying for healing. May they be blessed with a full and complete healing, a healing of spirit and a healing of body, together with all those who are ill among the Jewish people and among the world. May those who will not be healed on this earth be blessed with nights free from suffering and days filled with peace. May God grant strength and comfort to those who care for the sick. May God help us to find hope and courage as we face fear and loss. May all who are ill be surrounded by the love of friends, loving companions, families, and community. And let us say, Amen. For the prayer for our country, I'd love to invite up Yael Weiss. We recently had an influx of new members, both before the high holidays and from the high holidays, and I really am so happy and excited that we have so many new members, and Yael has been coming to Shabbat services on Friday night for the past month or two, and I'm really happy and excited to invite her to recite the prayer for our country. It's in your program on page 8. So you could choose either one, the top or the bottom, up to you. Yeah. Also, this is larger print if you'd like.
Our God and God of our ancestors, bless this country and all who dwell within it. Help us to experience the blessings of our lives and circumstances, to be vigilant, compassionate, and brave. Strengthen us when we are afraid. Help us to channel our anger so that it motivates us to action. Help us to feel our fear so that we do not become numb. Help us to be generous with others so that we raise each other up. Help us to humble in our fear, knowing that as vulnerable as we feel, there are those at greater risk and that it is our holy work to stand with them. Help us to taste the sweetness of liberty, to not take for granted the freedoms won in generations past or in recent days, to heal and nourish our democracy, that it may be like a tree planted by the water whose roots reach down to the stream. It need not fear drought when it comes. Its leaves are always green.
Thank you so much. Amen. Let us say Amen. Thank you, Yael. Yasher Koach. Page 138.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה קידותי והמליך מלכותי בחיי חונו ויומי חונו וחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן תתקבל צלות הון ובעוד הון דכל ישראל קודם ובהון דמשמעיה ואמרו אמן יהי שלום הרבה מן שמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום ממרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו Amen.
Thank you so much. What a true pleasure to daven with you all this evening. And for words of Torah, we are so blessed to have Rabbi James, who was earlier with all of you clinic volunteers in the sukkah and somehow still managed to write a drasha for this evening. So we're so happy to hear your words of wisdom.
Shabbat Shalom. And yes, thank you. We had a volunteer appreciation event in the sukkah before services that I know many of you saw on your way in. Some of you joined on your way in. It was the first real in-person ARC clinic event we have had since March 13th, 2020. So it was a really beautiful thing, I think, for all of us. And many thanks to Noah Habib, who I did not expect to see when I just looked up into the balcony. I'm glad you're still here. And I'm very grateful to welcome Reinhard and Alejandra, who stayed tonight, who were among our first friends to come to clinic when we started in person in May of 2019. So just before Rosh Hashanah, there are lots of Facebook groups on Facebook for clergy. Where else would they be? Where we share notes with each other and share sermon ideas and all kinds of things. And a friend of mine who has been a rabbi at her synagogue for about 15 years shared in the group her anxiety that her sermons, she felt, were no longer original, that she was saying the same things over and over again, and she was worried lest her community start to feel that she was getting repetitive. So by way of consolation, I pointed out that her congregants, and in fact, Jews everywhere, have been reading the same machzor every year, the same Torah every week. And somehow we haven't gotten permanently sick of it yet. When I was growing up, my family went to Shabbat services almost every night, every Friday night. In the synagogue where I grew up, the kids all got to sit in sort of the place of honor. There were these funky wooden benches that surrounded the bima. And it was like we got the front row seats. It was very exciting that we got to sit there. And nevertheless, despite our front row seats, we sat there whispering to each other, sometimes singing along, sometimes pinching each other. Every now and then we would escape to the kitchen and get the chocolate chip cookies that the adults hid in the freezer. And I suspect that the adults watching us thought, are they learning anything? What are they going to retain from this experience when they're just sitting there nudging each other and whispering about their favorite cartoons? But I think, as most of us know, there's a deep wisdom to doing ritual on a regular basis, because even if you think you don't know something, if you have come to synagogue on a regular basis for a couple of months, you know the Shema. If you come for more than a year on a regular basis, you know the V'ahavta. The words start to sink into you and become part of who you are. And we don't always realize how those things sink into us. When I went to Jewish summer camp at age 8, it was the first time I did Jewish ritual, anywhere other than with my family and or in my synagogue. And the first Friday night service was frankly really confusing. I was kind of wondering, wait, do I know any of this? But we got to, Oseh Shalom Bimromav, and something clicked in my 8-year-old brain, and I was like, oh, this is home. Oh, I know this. This is part of me. This is part of who I am. And in that moment, I suddenly felt deeply connected to the people around me and also to my family at home. And little did I know, eventually, kind of to the entire world of Jews that have ever existed through that piece of what felt like was in my soul. The funny thing is that I grew up thinking that melody had been carried down from Sinai, and it's only thanks to Joyce Rosenzweig and CBST that I learned that Nurit Hirsch, who composed that, is just turned 80 this summer. She lives in Israel. That melody is not much older than I am, actually. But even so, I actually met somebody under the sukkah, at a friend's sukkah this week, who grew up in a Haredi community, who has since come out as a lesbian and is now living out and not so much in Jewish community. And in conversation, mentioned to her, so when you do Havdalah, do you do that lie, lie, la, 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 lie, lie? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, did you know that a lesbian wrote that song? Because her Haredi community had done it forever, and she had absolutely no idea. But right, these things become part of who we are. So we all have the different texts, the different melodies that sort of connect us to who we are, to our communities, to our history. Books and poems, sometimes movies or TV shows that we fall in love with, and sometimes unexpectedly. But there are so many books and songs that I fell in love with as a kid, as a teenager, that now make me feel like I'm returning home, or returning to an earlier version of myself, or sometimes returning to the feeling of having learned something so momentous that it helped me better understand the world and who I was in it. So some of the books that have shaped me, and of course the list would be much too long to go into here. I would be here for another few hours. I would never subject you to that, I promise. But Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, both volumes of Maus by Art Spiegelman, Shel Silverstein's poetry, Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. And all of these books that I just named have three things in common. First, each one taught me something new about the world and or about myself. I have reread each of them more times than I can count. I've even taught a few. And now returning to them feels like coming home. Second, each has won multiple major awards, recognized as deeply important and beautiful works of art. And third, each one has been banned in school districts and in libraries, and is still being challenged regularly alongside much newer books that I did not grow up with. The Bluest Eye has been banned in Missouri school districts and beyond for including sexually explicit language, and as the school board wrote, disturbing language. Disturbing. A Wrinkle in Time has been regularly challenged even in public schools and libraries by Christian groups who argue that the book undermines their theology. Where the Sidewalk Ends, this is my favorite, by Shel Silverstein, was pulled from a school library after complaints that the poems encouraged drug use, the occult, and disrespect for authority. Heavens. And Slaughterhouse-Five, I mean, really now, Slaughterhouse-Five has been banned many, many, many times since it was published in 1972 for referring to sex and violence, for disturbing images, and for curse words, which, to be clear, it's a book about a young man's experience of war. And Maus was recently pulled off library shelves in Tennessee schools due to objections. This will never fail to baffle me. Objections having to do with nudity and curse words. Nude cartoon mice in a book about the Holocaust. I know, I don't, anyway. Yeah, anyway. So just before Rosh Hashanah was actually Banned Books Week, the American Library Association's week of calling attention to these, the efforts to ban books and encouraging people to, actually read those books and to fight back against efforts to ban books. This is more and more important because these efforts to pull books off of shelves have been spreading further and further, and have started happening actually in the school that I went to in Connecticut, and that has been a fight that I am currently fighting with some friends. And this is going further and further in the state of New York as well, although I don't think in the city yet, but we don't know. Now, I started talking about synagogue, right, and the texts and the songs that we return to here week after week and year after year. And I will say that some of these texts and songs come back to me at very random times. This summer, there was one week walking in my neighborhood up in Washington Heights, very, very Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. I'm often kind of humming to myself or singing as I walk, and there was a man walking towards me in a black hat who was looking at me strangely, which actually doesn't often happen in my neighborhood, and I suddenly realized I was humming Kol Nidre. I think it was July. Okay, but it's in there somewhere, and it comes out at odd times, right? I also, before we even started planning services for Sukkot, was walking through Fort Tryon Park one day and suddenly found myself singing Shlomit Bona Sukkah, and thinking, okay, wait, no, we haven't even gotten to Yom Kippur yet. Slow down, it's okay. So even now, also, when we sing the Nurit Hirsch Oseh Shalom, I am sometimes brought back to that 8-year-old part of myself, suddenly realizing that there was a text and a melody that I had that was going to be my home, right? It didn't matter where I went or who I was with. There was something inside me that had been a gift from my tradition and from my community that would always be a home wherever I traveled. This summer, some of you were on Zoom with me for a panel discussion through the Museum of Jewish Heritage downtown that focused on the experiences of LGBTQ people in Germany just before World War II. You've probably all seen photos from the first and largest book burning that took place in Berlin. The photos are painfully memorable, a pile of books and papers, massive pile blazing, with a circle of young men surrounding it, some of them with their arms in the air. I'd seen these photos many, many times, but what I did not learn until I was an adult is what books and papers were being burned in that first major book burning. The collection was a massive library of material on sex and gender, books and research about homosexuality and transgender people. I see nods. I know many of you know this history. Some of you probably don't. It's not something that we generally get taught, which is a shame. Years worth of scientific research, much of which was totally unique to this one library. The first massive Nazi book burning on May 6, 1933, targeted the Institute for the Science of Sexuality, founded by Magnus Hirschfeld, a gay German Jew. It was the first step towards the Nazis' goal to erase, to really eradicate both Jewish and LGBTQ life. Nazi ideology still today links homosexuality and Judaism as being degenerate, that terrible word that was used to ban not only books, but art and music and so many different forms of cultural production. Hirschfeld founded the Institute in 1919, and in the 1920s and 30s was known, I love this, as the Einstein of sex. If I had known when I was young that one could aspire to be the Einstein of sex, I feel like there might have been a different career trajectory, but I am neighbors with Dr. Ruth. I will let that be enough. And he wrote about the people that he worked with and treated and welcomed at his research center and clinic, and even created language that did not exist before to describe people that he was encountering. Because the people, right, we, LGBTQ folks, have always existed, but the language that we've used and the language that has been used on us has changed over the years. The Institute hired transgender researchers and nurses, offered social groups and support groups, and offered healthcare, including what we now call gender-affirming surgeries, the first ones, and held this amazing library where Hirschfeld collected and created material that would include eventually over 20,000 volumes. Hirschfeld was out of the country when the Nazis invaded his building and carried off the library and burned 20,000 books. All of the medical records, including detailed notes about hormones and surgeries, diaries and letters, stories and poetry, an entire library of texts that Hirschfeld and his colleagues had created to help others find themselves. In the newsreels, it was reported that Germany had destroyed, in quotes, the intellectual garbage of the past. I cannot even begin to imagine how many of us in the LGBTQ world today would have found ourselves in some of those books and found connections to ancestors in those writings. Those who burned his library had begun with the language of protecting German youth and did not stop, as we know, with burning books. And today, we see people around this country calling for beloved books to be removed from libraries and schools to protect children. And I see that bonfire just down the road. Book banning goes after books specifically that give minorities the representation that makes us feel that we've found home, that we've found a story we fit into. Those calling for banning books to protect children aren't interested in protecting children who are LGBTQ or children who are Jewish or Muslim or any other minority. Now, thank goodness this is, I will say, a golden age of great books for kids that focus on queer characters, LGBTQ families, non-Christian protagonists, Black kids, Asian kids. And these books, the ones where transgender kids and others can find themselves and see their stories, are the ones most frequently being attacked. I cannot tell you how many times as a child I would find a book I loved and a character I deeply identified with, and then the family would put up a Christmas tree, and I'd be like, okay, all right. Or it turned out sometimes, C.S. Lewis, that the entire story turned out to be an allegory for Jesus. It was mildly traumatizing, actually not so mildly traumatizing when I got to the last book, and I really wanted, it is rare in my life that I want to fling a book across a room, but that was one of those moments. And similarly, I did not read a book that included a gay character. I had to think really hard about this until I was in graduate school in my 20s. I absolutely love that kids today have access to an ever-increasing range of stories with people of all kinds. Right? Decades ago, if you found a story with a Jewish character in it, it was like finding a unicorn. It was like so exciting. I mean, I read some really bad Jewish kids' books when I was a kid because there weren't many, and some of them were really bad. But some of the best Jewish books I found, like Chaim Potak's novels, which I probably read younger than I should have, and Isaac Bashevis Singer's stories, likewise, a lot of those included nudity, sexuality, disturbing language. And I am so deeply grateful that those books were available to me. I am so deeply grateful that I eventually found really good LGBTQ literature out there because I found home in so many of those books. They continue to stay with me. And I hope that kids today who are LGBTQ don't experience the same kind of really like loneliness that came from walking into a library and kind of despairing of ever finding something that felt like me on the shelf. And I find it so sad when adults who really should know better treat the presence of LGBTQ people in a book as some kind of degeneracy that straight children and teens need to be protected from. When we come to synagogue, we return to everything that is in the Siddur and in the Machzor, the divine and the devastating. Right? We don't skip those chapters of the Torah. We talk about them. Sometimes we kind of talk about the parts we'd rather talk about, but we don't not chant them out loud. And when I return here especially, I return to all of you and to all the stories that we have been part of together over the years. I return to the texts and songs that shaped who I am and where I can find myself again. A story. Of course, a story. In my first year as a rabbinical student, I taught Hebrew school in a suburban conservative synagogue outside of Philadelphia. I taught 6th and 7th grade, which initially seemed terrifying, but the kids quickly convinced me that they really were the best possible age to teach. They were deeply opinionated. They were a hilarious mix of enthusiastic and jaded, and they loved thinking and talking about complex history and concepts. So I had the 6th graders learning about colonial American Jewish life, each of them getting an individual historical figure to learn about and sort of inhabit their story a bit. And together we made a map of where the first generation of Jews in America had come from. Of course, the first real community of Jews in America came fleeing the Inquisition and arrived in New York, not exactly intentionally. And so we learned about Sephardic Jews and different traditions that were once the majority here before my Ashkenazi ancestors and millions of others arrived. And one of the boys one week came in with his face glowing. He was like bouncing on his feet with excitement the way only an 11-year-old can. And he told us, "My dad's family is Sephardic. I showed my dad our map, and he said his mom spoke the same language that they did." Aaron's dad told me that Shabbat that he had never heard Sephardic Jews mentioned once at their synagogue. He had given up years before trying to introduce one Ladino song to the community because people just had no concept, they had no context for it. And he thought, okay, they're not going to see it. I'm not, that part of me is not represented here. And then suddenly, his 11-year-old came home from Hebrew school, and he saw that he was seen. There was a whole part of his family history that he found himself in. And for his kids, his 11 and 8-year-old kids, they wound up learning something new about not only about Jewish history and about, going to Hebrew school, but they really learned something so deep about themselves and their own family history, their own inheritance, that it really not only transformed this one family, but it transformed a lot of the relationship with the community. We are the people of the book. We are people of text and song and stories. Wherever we go, we collect more. We are enriched by it. We bring it wherever we go next, and we take it with us, and that's our home, is the melodies and the texts, right? We don't need the physical space so much. We dwell in those texts. We dwell in our stories. And I hope we can all continue to find ways to make sure that this full, beautiful, expanding, glorious range of stories continues to be accessible to everyone who's seeking home in them, so that everyone who needs them will find them. Shabbat Shalom.
All I can say to that drasha is amen, amen, amen. I'm so happy that your Torah is in this world and that we get to learn from you. And also, I am so happy to call you the Einstein of sex whenever you would like. Your new, one of your many titles, I'm sure. So now we come to such a wonderful part of the service. We are going to do 2 pieces of Hallel because it is Sukkot and we are all gathered together. And so we want to make sure to get to have a little time to dwell, to use Rabbi James's beautiful words, to dwell really in the holiday, to dwell really in the Chag as well. So the word that I would like to invite us to go into Hallel with this evening is oneg. I really want us to bring as much delight as we possibly can into this Hallel. So I want to see some dancing. I want to see singing as much as you can. I'm going to look. I'll be dancing and belt it out. I want to hear it. So we will begin Hallel with B'tzeit Yisrael on page 160 in the Siddur. Please rise in body and spirit.
B'tzeit Yisrael mi-Mitzrayim Beit Yaakov me'am noes B'tzeit Yisrael mi-Mitzrayim Beit Yaakov me'am noes Hayta Yehuda lekosho Yisrael mamshelotav Hayayam Ravayanos Hayarden Yisov le'achor Heharim rakdu che'elim Gevaot Kivnei tzon Malecha hayam Kitanus Hayarden Tisov le'achor Heharim תרחאלי גבעות כבני צאן מלפני אדון חולי ארץ מלפני אלוה יעקב ההופכי הצור אגמים חלמיש למים מים
166.
הודו לאדוני כי טוב כי לעולם הסתו ימר ביי 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 ימר ביי 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 כי לעולם חסדו ימר ביי 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 ימר ביי 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 כי לעולם חסדו יאמר נא ישראל כי לעולם חסדו ימר ביי 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 ימר ביי 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 כי לעולם חסדו ימר ביי 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 ימר ביי 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 כי לעולם חסדו יאמרו נא בית אהרון כי לעולם חסדו ימר ביי 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 ימר ביי 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 כי לעולם חסדו ימר ביי 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 ימר ביי 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 כי לעולם חסדו יאמרו נא יראה אדוני כי לעולם חסדו ימר ביי 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 ימר ביי 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 כי לעולם חסדו ימר ביי 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 ימר ביי 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 כי לעולם חסדו ימר ביי 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 ימר ביי 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 כי לעולם חסדו ימר ביי 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 ימר ביי 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 כי לעולם חסדו.
Sometimes it feels good to dance, right? You gotta dance. Page 140 for Aleinu. Please remain standing in body or in spirit.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גנולה ליוצר בראשית, שברא אותנו בצלמו, ונפח בנו את נשמת חיינו, שהעמיק אותנו בלימוד תורתו, וקישנו במצוותיה, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב עיקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. We are about to say Psalm 27 for the last time on a Friday night since we began saying it at the very beginning of Elul. This is our last Friday night, Achat Sha'alti. So think back. I know. It's so sad to see it go, but guess what? We get to return, right? We get to return every year. So think back, start of Elul, when we started saying it, carrying us all the way through the high holidays, the Yamim Noraim, taking us up until this very moment, leading into Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. You are my light and my help. Whom should I fear? You are the fortress of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When my enemies gather to attack me, it is they who stumble and fall. Were an army to besiege me, I still would have no fear. One thing I ask, only this do I seek, to dwell in your house all the days of my life, to behold your loveliness in the light of your temple dawn. You will shelter me under your protection, concealing me in your tent. You will lift me to safety on a high rock, raising my head above all my foes. Psalm 27, 188.
Achat sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Achat sha'alti meit Adonai ota
We pause in this service, as we do in every service, to remember those we have loved and lost, And this week, we lost 2 matriarchs of CBST members. CBST extends our deepest condolences to CBST member Nettie Sobolski, Zichrona Livracha, who died on October 11th, and condolences to her son, also CBST member Paul Sobolski, and his partner Kevin. We also extend our deep condolences to member Shep Wachnun on the death of his mother, Rose Wachnun, Zichrona Livracha, who died on October 10th. We also remember the yortzites of CBST members Seymour Krasny, Joyce Warschau, Phyllis Glantz, Rabbi Julie Spitzer, Wolfgang Marcus, Shifra Klein, David Goldstein, and Howard Bender, as well as CBST family and friends, Irving Aaron, Sidney Odwack, Helena Gaffney, Paul Heller, Mildred Tallis, Bella Maslia, Cyril Dratfield, Joan Kogos, Lester Friedman, Matthew Shepard, Samuel Gold, Max Silverman, Sarah Dreschler, Harold Sonberg, Anna Friedman, Harry Mandel, Cornelius Felt, Bertie Solomon, and Patricia Alice Pride. If you are observing a yortzeit, or you are in mourning, or is your custom to stand for the mourner's Kaddish, please rise in body or spirit on page 150. Gadal v'itgadash shemei Rabbah. Ve'amad divrach chirutei, ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon u've'yamechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam omei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh. Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shemei de Kudasha, Brechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, ta'amiran v'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom v'imramav, hu yaseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru. Amen. You may be seated, and I'm thrilled to invite up CBST Board Vice President Harold Levine, who gets extra points for dancing tonight. Extra points. That's why we like you.
Hello, everyone. When you get the news that your senior rabbi and her wife are flying over to Ukraine on the day that the Russians start indiscriminate bombing, a number of thoughts go through your mind. Number one is huge, huge pride in their courage and valor to go over in the face of this situation, to bear witness and bring gifts. Number two, a hope that their security team knows what they're doing. Number three is great confidence that the clergy team who remains behind can keep our community going in their absence. And number four, the most fervent hope that they arrive home safely. So it was with great joy that I got the text that they had landed and they were waiting for a gate for their plane. A number of us said Psalm 27 during the week at the rabbi's request, and I think that a number of us noticed for the first time that the second verse is, when my enemies gather to attack me, it is they who stumble and fall. Were an army to besiege me, still I would have no fear. And it really is with great love and relief that we welcome them back. Jason, if you could just pan for a minute, and if we could stand up and just give the rabbi our love and relief that she's back. Just wave at the camera, okay? I hope that she's streaming. If not, she's going to be watching this later. So, relief that they're back, and hope that they are able to catch up on, I'm sure, is much needed sleep. Now I can take a breath and say Shabbat Shalom. I'm Harold Levine, Vice President of the Board, and on behalf of the lay leadership of the synagogue, I'd like to welcome you all, whether here in person or streaming online. And of the streamers, I'd particularly like to send love to Linda Solomon in her rehabilitation facility, recovering from a broken ankle suffered the first night of Rosh Hashanah. I was in touch with her today, and she thanks everyone for all of the good wishes that they've sent, and she will be streaming the services. I'm reminded tonight, after that wonderful service led by Rabbi Werber, what is the name of this synagogue? It's the House of Joy. It's Beit Simcha, right? Beit Simcha Torah. And you certainly brought an infectious joy of this holiday. You really did make it Zeman Simchatenu, a time of our rejoicing with your beautiful service leadership. Rabbi James, I was so moved when I came up to see all of our friends and volunteers from the ARC Clinic in front. I think that you and the team have made this both a Teva, an ark in uncertain times, and a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace for those who need it, the hundreds of people who've come through our doors who needed it so much. Sam, where did Sam? Oh, Sam, okay. Thank you so much for bringing your joy to us with that beautiful Shlomit Boneh Sukkah, and for that rousing rendition. I don't know that I've ever danced like that during Hallel. And to Joyce, thank you so much for the beautiful accompaniment. Now, I'm sure you've heard that Sam played the piano last week to accompany himself, but we're still glad to, he was great, but we're still really glad to have you back with us.
We're very glad.
I invite you all to return tomorrow, either in person or online, at 10 a.m. for our Shabbat morning service for the intermediate Shabbat of Sukkah, and for our online Havdalah at 8:30 p.m. And on Monday, the marathon of the High Holy Days comes to an end. We have not one with two services. At 10 a.m. in the morning, we have Shemini Atzeret with Yizkor, and the beautiful Piyut, Geshem, only heard once a year. And at 6:30 p.m., we have our big gay Simchat Torah service. Join us for both or either online or in person, although I really do urge you to come to Simchat Torah in person to dance with the Torah scrolls for the first time in 3 years. All members, please mark your calendars for December 15th at 6 p.m. for our annual meeting, either online or in person. You should have received a notice via email today, and you'll be receiving a proxy ballot in the proposed budget in mid-November. Some of you with eagle eyes might have noticed that there are no chalot underneath the candles, and there are no Kiddush cups. The reason for this is that we will, in groups small enough to fit in the sukkah, be led by Rabbi Werber, be led by our clergy team in the sukkah as we do motzi and kiddush in the sukkah, and then go downstairs for an oneg. Thank you very much for doing that. It is an only one parking space size sukkah, so we will repeat the motzi and the kiddush several times so that everyone will be able to experience it. Everything I've mentioned and much more is in your e-news and online. And with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom and turn it back to our service leaders. Shep, you had one. Shep, yeah.
Rabbi James was just excellent. We just have to thank her, the congregation, and Rabbi Kleinbaum called me the other day from Poland. So I just want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for being there for me, and Rabbi James especially.
Thank you. For our streamers, Shep had just stood to express his gratitude to the congregation and the clergy for the support that he has gotten during his time of mourning. Thank you very much, Shep.
Thank you. So I'm especially grateful to you, Harold, for describing so perfectly exactly what's going to happen with the Kiddush and Motzi, because I was going to struggle figuring it out. So when we end the service, I will help shepherd people in groups towards the sukkah so that everybody can hear the Kiddush, eat a little bite of Motzi, say Leishev B'Sukkah before they come back down and join the Oneg. And as Harold said, because it's just a small space, we'll do it in small groups so everybody can kind of stand. It's kind of small sukkah. Everybody will hopefully be able to at least sit.
Yeah.
So I want to do sponsorships, right? I haven't done this in a while. What's happening?
Yes, exactly.
It's been holidays. I don't know. Anyways, yes, sponsorships. So tonight's live stream is sponsored by Linda Solomon and Bonnie Siegel in honor of Linda's mother, Bertie Solomon, Zichrona Livracha, on the occasion of her 34th yortzeit. She is very missed, very loved. She was a wonderful mother, wonderful person, loved by everyone who knew her. Sponsored also by Andy Austin, who's here, to wish a happy 75th birthday to his beloved husband, Michael Sonberg, and many more in good health. Happy birthday, Michael. So happy. So glad you're both here. It's also supported by Jay Fisher, also in honor of Michael Sonberg, our cherished friend on your 75th birthday. May you have many more, with much love and thanks for your support, Michael and Jay. Also supported by Rebecca Rosenbaum, remembering on 2 calendars last days of shared life. You are my home in the world, beloved Besheret husband Steve Marsden, Zichrono Livracha, who hits his 7th Yortzeit on the 7th of Cheshvan. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And I know you're online, so we're sending you our love from 30th Street. And also from Dorothy Sander in honor of Joyce Warshaw's Yortzeit anniversary. So sending love to all those who are observing a Yortzeit this week, and sending a special happy birthday to you, Michael, as well. And now we're turning back to the program on page, where are we? Thank you. What a great kahal we have. Page 6 for, we'll hear some of the words of Ecclesiastes, of Kohelet, which of course is read on Shabbat Chol HaMoed. So if you come back tomorrow, you'll be able to hear Ecclesiastes being read in the sanctuary. And I just want to give a little introduction by way of my teacher, Joyce Rosenzweig, who brought to light that in addition to the fact that we're finishing up saying Psalm 27, which has carried us through the high holiday season, the book of Ecclesiastes also has this way of being a resonance of much of the liturgy of the high holiday season, as well as particularly Unatana Tokef. So it's this sort of beautiful bookend to the Yamim Noraim. So page 6.
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. a time to rend, a time to sow, a time of love, a time of hate, a time of peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven.
So Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to invite the first, I'm going to invite Harold Levine.
I suggest, Rabbi, as a member of our medical committee, that the people who've chosen to remain...
Exactly what I was just going to say. Amazing. I'm so happy that we're on the same wavelength. That's perfect. So I would like to invite anyone who is in the masking section over here to be the first group to go into the sukkah. Cantor Rosen will be there, and Rabbi James will also be shepherding folks as they're headed there. Yes, and this anybody who's in this masking section as well is also welcome to come down at this moment. So thank you. I'll be joining you there in a minute.
See you soon.
And Shabbat Shalom, definitely.